It's Sunday, so I'm back going through Sophia Ìzeus, which is like kind of like a secret book of the Bible for Protestants. It's called Sirach, but it's not. It's Sophia Ìzeus, son of Sirach, because there was another Ìzeus who was the military commander for Moses, who was the ruler of Israel after Moses died. So this Ìzeus is like kind of crazy towards women today. Like he says, from a woman is the beginning something, and because of her we all die, the beginning of sin. Maybe I can't see it because my hand's covering it, but like he's kind of crazy, but like then he's also like the most incredible writer. I mean, but he sure talks about slavery a lot also. But I'm trying to figure out what I can learn from this guy, and what he says here is, my soul found passion in these three things, and these are beautiful before the Lord and human beings: harmony of brothers, and friendship of fellows, and a wife and husband who accommodate each other. Okay, so like he's talking about happiness, I think, but he's also talking about what like he was really he's found passion in his life from, and like his relationship with his brother, like is one of them, and his friendship with with people, because like you can have a brother like friendship, and then a wife and husband who accommodate each other. And he says, happy is he who dwells with a sensible wife, and who did not slip with the tongue, and who did not become a slave to one unworthy of himself. Wow, so great. So like, how do you become a slave? It sounds like from war, because he says like that, like a slave becomes a slave by blood, by like spilling blood, I think. And so like generally that's how you become a slave, and you can become a slave of someone who's like your worst nightmare. And I feel like that's kind of like the situation I'm in right now, where like I was born a slave to the order of Melchizedek, and they're cloning people and controlling their lives that much through like the internet, and like blocking their communications and making them slaves from birth, and they're like controlling their life so that they can't get out of the situation they're in. They're that in control of the media, they're that in control of the political system, like they're the governors, like they're the people in charge of law enforcement. And so like it's felt pretty unhappy lately, or I felt pretty unhappy lately. And I think that part of that has to do with like, I look at myself and like I've been feeling like I look fat, and I have to like think like, well, people love Chris Farley, like you have to view yourself as Chris Farley. Like, I mean, like even like Chris Farley's actually fat. And like, I think that like you can get into your head that you look a certain way, like, cause like you see your hair, like my hair is long, like I look like a fat beatnik. Like, don't get into my head where I start thinking that. And like, I have to like go, well, so the last thing I want to talk about in this section, where he's talking about how like what makes him happy, which a lot of it has to do with relationships. A lot of it has to do with like being around his, like a wife who's like has common sense. Like she's like a good partner to be around, because like can like the best person ever have the worst wife ever, or the worst husband ever, and then they're unhappy? Without a doubt. Like you can be around someone that makes you unhappy, and like your friendships can make you unhappy, and your relationship with your siblings can make you unhappy. Your relationship with your parents can make you unhappy, and like sometimes that's not your fault, but like you should probably assume it's your fault unless it isn't your fault. But here he says, those who are glad at the fall of pious persons will get caught in a snare, because like he's been talking about like all the things that like set up snares, which is a trap. Like you will fall into it. Like if you dig a pit, you'll fall into the trap. It's something that's said in Proverbs also. And so, like here he's talking about like your sin and your like, probably like for me it's like your greedy behavior, or like your selfishness, your lack of courtesy. Like those are the sort of things that can like dig a pit, and you can fall into it. But like a person who like isn't happy when like a decent person is successful, like that's a snare. Like you should be happy at the success of your friends. Like say that like your friend like was Jeff Bezos, and you're the guy who's going, oh yeah, well, like, yeah, I mean, yeah, he's a millionaire now. Like, I mean, he's still a piece of shit. Like, I still hate that guy. Like, but the next thing you know, like all your other friends are like, hey, congratulations. Next thing you know, like Jeff Bezos comes around, like he's giving people jobs. And like, you're the one that was rude. and everyone else was like, hey, I'm really happy for your success. Like that is a snare. And like, like anytime you have bad interactions with society, like that is a snare, like that is a trap. You're trapping yourself in the future by by what you said to that person, by what you did to that person. And I see bad people all the time, and they're constantly setting traps everywhere. Like they're assholes to people everywhere. And like, they don't get that, like, even if you're not an asshole to that person, they saw you be an asshole. And so like you have like set a snare like that, like with a group of people you didn't even know were out there. And I think a lot of that comes down to arrogance. And like, I think that like, I've said it a lot, like being too obsessed with trying to not be arrogant, with trying to be humble can be bad. But like arrogance is the greatest trap, because like that's how you really like will embarrass yourself with like suddenly your arrogance didn't work out. I'm moving forward here, and he's talking about like how to be happy still, and he's saying there's no wealth better than health of the body. So like there's no money you can give someone that can make up for like the fact that they're sick or that they're injured. And because a rich person who's injured is like very limited in what they can do and stuff like that. Socrates said that the greatest pleasure is the absence of pain. And I think that's pretty true. And I think that like that's why it's so important to try to stay healthy. I think that that's one of my biggest problems I've had lately is like I've been so broke, I haven't been able to afford healthy food. And like it's gotten into my head that it's making me fat. And like I haven't been able to exercise because like I live like as I'm kind of just in that situation where my exercise is very limited because of like my life right now. And so like you have like a lot of happiness can be in your head. But like a lot of happiness is your body because it's how you feel. And like he talks about in one point in this section, like which I it's a lot of chapters I'm going through, like not overeating because like it can cause you unhappiness. It can hurt your ability to sleep and stuff like that. And like I think like you'd be surprised by how much happiness can have to do with your lifestyle. With your food consumption and stuff like that. But here he says, do not give your soul to grief and do not afflict yourself by your design. Gladness of heart is life for a person. So like how you feel in your heart is your life. And like in like a happy person is life. And then like a sad person, I think, sucks life from everything around it. And it's like a dementor, and they can, and emotions are contagious. And so like I think that like you really do have to watch out for like letting yourself be overwhelmed by grief, especially at like the death of someone, and like or the death of your dog or something like that. And you have to figure out how to like not feel like you're supposed to be sad. I'm supposed to grieve. Like I'm supposed to be grieving for this period. Like I'm like this is like if I don't grieve, then I didn't care. And like I think the reality is like you have to try to get over it. And so like you definitely don't want to like feel like you need grief. Like I have to grieve, like you have to get over it. The last thing I wanted to point out about this section of Sophia Ìzeus is I got to the point where like he does talk about how you can torture your slaves. And I've talked about how I'm going to keep slaves because like they're in trouble because this whole like COVID-19, but also this organized crime thing. A lot of people are just criminals. So like we'll just keep them as slaves and have them play music for us. But like clearly like I can put them in very heavy fetters. So like I can put them in very heavy chains, and then I am allowed to torture them because I am like, because that's the rules for slaves, because if you're a wicked slave, then I'm allowed to torture you. But if you have a domestic, treat him like a brother, because you will need him like your own soul. If you do him evil and he departs and runs away, on which road will you seek him? Yeah. So like clearly like slavery was that common like in the Bible, and it was the culture. And so like who was probably the biggest slave owner like in history, like in history at the Bible time? It was probably Paul. Paul from the Bible was probably the number one slave owner. Uh-oh. Did I just offend you? I mean, I really do think he was probably number one slave owner. Like, cause like if you think about it, like he's brothers with King Herod Agrippa. Herod Agrippa is like half brothers with Caligula. So Caligula is married to like the merchant rich family through Herod Agrippa, because Herod Agrippa is probably actually the richest. But like if Herod Agrippa is the richest, then Paul's the richest, and those dudes have so many freaking slaves. So yeah, I don't think that my dreams are foolish. I think like I'm not really attached to the idea that like I'm gonna save the planet, because like I'm attached to the idea that like in 2 years you're not going to be able to keep me on probation anymore, and I can get out of here and I can go live my life, and you guys can go like figure out how to deal with the fact that like California is suddenly out of water and Colorado's out of water, and like I was here like explaining it to you in so much detail, and you're all going like, well, I'm not allowed to look at his webpage, like I'm not allowed to go on Snapchat, like we're not allowed to look at Snapchat, like that's just how the law enforcement is. We're not allowed to be on the internet, like law enforcement doesn't look at the internet, like we don't notice like that you are a sex trafficking victim that much. I've talked about confiscating a lot of property, and I clearly like what I've talked about is confiscating Jewish people's property. And like, I feel like I have to be clear about my stance since I'm running for president. And my stance is like, if you're Jewish and you're rich, your money's gone. And that's just how it is. And I'm sure everyone thinks that's discrimination. It's not. I'm part of the mafia. Like I know who's organized crime, and the reality is like if you have a lot of money and you're Jewish, your money's going to be gone, and you're going to have to be a normal person, and that's really like my stance on it. And like there are certain people that are going to be taken as slaves, and there are certain people that are going to fight, and it's going to be a battle, because the reality is like history tells me that like that conspiracy exists for a reason, and it's because people were tortured and enslaved, and they were manipulated and they were lied to, and like and history tells me those people are still in charge that much, and like they're in charge of my government that much, and they're and reality shows me that like the media is controlled that much by this group of people who like really got to where they are by doing terrible things, and like who really are where they are right now by doing terrible things to people, and no one even knows they exist. And the censorship is that disturbing. And so like clearly like a lot of property would be confiscated, and if you're a broke Jewish person, like you probably would be left alone that much. And according to Hosea, like you guys are going to be treated like you're like the lowest caste in our society. And my opinion is that like I would change my name. And like I met someone named Levi, and like clearly it's the Levites that are involved with the conspiracy, and I thought like I would change my name. Like I didn't want to tell him, but my opinion was like I would change my name. Like you're a Christian, you should change your name. Like I'm sorry, but I would change my name. And it's because like this conspiracy is so documented, like, and like it is so experienced by me. Like I can vouch that this conspiracy exists. Like I'm the person who like is secretly Jewish, and my family is secretly Jewish, and we're in on the conspiracy, and secretly Jewish people get into politics. And Joe Biden, clearly all you have to do is type in Joe Biden is Jewish, and you'll find an article about it. And like that group of people is not going to stay in charge. Like that religion, like clearly is a religion that you would never ever stay in unless like you were part of the conspiracy. Like it's kind of that religion. Yeah, like I would definitely like change my name if it was something like that. So I've been really hurt. So I haven't been able to spend as much time on Bible study as I'd like, because I do want to be accurate when I preach. But like I think part of the reason that it's so hard to figure out the Bible study is because like this book like doesn't line up with that one. Like when I'm trying to do Greek, like I'm trying to look up hoikete, which like I'm still baffled by hoikete. Like you can sell yourself into slavery, but generally slaves are won in battle. You can sell your daughter as a slave, but you can also sell your daughter into marriage, which is a variation of slavery. And you can torture slaves, but like a smart person doesn't torture their slaves. So this is 33:16 or whatever. Wait, no, this is 33:27. It looks like, but here it's 30:26. So it's been very hard trying to figure out like things in the Greek. And I think that like when I read Sophia Ìzeus, it's like, it's just different, like in the Greek, like it's hard. Like, and the problem is I can't bend my neck down because like I got beat up by the police, and then I got handcuffed recently, so I got re-injured. And like that's like where I really get my stress in my life from, like is like I'm afraid that I can't work. Like I have to go do manual labor, but then I'm so hurt I can't do manual labor. But I have to go get a job because I can't communicate with the outside world because the mafia is in control of the United States communications. So like, and then I'm always in danger. So like I have to go out all the time. And all I want to do is go hide. And like, I don't know what to do because like of the censorship, and then because I'm so injured. Like, I feel like I'm good for nothing because I'm injured. Like, I need to be able to put things on a wall or, like, on a projector. Like, I need a big screen in front of me, and I need to stand up because, like, the moment I start reading, like, a big, heavy book like this, like, I'm screwed, and I end up in so much pain. So, I don't know. I've got to, like, be careful. Maybe I need to do one Bible study a week. All right, I feel like I should teach this lesson because I kind of discovered this. In ancient times, there were different social classes, like in Bible times, in like Rome specifically, and there was like the emperor, which was like a class in itself, but his family was also kind of the same class, and so there's like the emperor, the king, and the king had a role as a judge, and I think the emperor had a role as a judge, and the high priest has a role as a judge, because like if you remember Ananias. Ordered that Paul get beat up. And so, like in the book of Acts. So, like they had a judicial hearing against Paul, or Paulo. Okay. So, Ìzeus was also a judge because he was a lord. So I think the lords were the main judges. So like but like a high priest could act as a judge in a situation like involving like, I think the emperor's family probably. But I think that generally they were like in charge of the police because the priests were like the police, and they were like they had rules, like they had the law, Moses' law, and they enforced the law. And that's why in the Bible they're always talking to Ìzeus and asking him to like stone someone or something like that. So I think that the soldiers also had a class in themselves, and probably slave soldiers were like a different class also. And then there were the freemen. And freemen tend to be like merchants and stuff like that, and people that had enough money to like stay as a freeman, and like, but clearly like you could get kidnapped and put into slavery very easily, and that's why there are commandments about like not kidnapping Jewish people and putting them into slavery. But like an Egyptian could be a freeman, like which Egyptians were black, and then there were like the Mahdians. Like Mahdi is like outside of Egypt. So like that was like Sudan probably, and that's where Moses fled. Okay, so there were Jewish slaves because you could be a slave, but there were like, I think there was like a 7-year limit on which you could keep a Jewish person a slave, and then there were average slaves, which like are like people that are like might be more educated, like might be more well read, and then there are low slaves that are probably like Mahdian, and then like you could be an indentured Jewish wife, which like you have a role as a slave, but there are different rules because you are a wife, and then you could have like a slave wife. And so I think those are like the main classes that I've come across like in my reading, because like what I learned is that like everyone, like that Ìzeus was like a ruler, like a Roman ruler, like, but he was a Jewish ruler because the Jewish people were in charge of Rome, and he was probably somehow related to like it's weird that he doesn't know Apollo or Paul. I didn't teach it all on Islam last week, so I figured I should go through a little bit of Ali's sayings again. Ali is who wrote the Quran, literally, like he literally wrote it. The first one, it says, a bad action that distresses you is better in the eyes of Allah than a good action that makes you proud. So, like that's kind of like it's not always true, obviously. Like sometimes like you can have a bad action that distresses you that doesn't impact you in a positive way. But like, you can also have a bad action that distresses you in a way that like completely changes your life. Like that one time I took my kid to soccer practice and I went to the bar and I got so drunk and I drove him home, and I got home and it distressed me so much. Like that could be a situation that completely changes your life after that. And like, you become a person after that who will never drink and drive ever again. And so like in that situation, like that sin could be a good thing. But like, you can also get distressed in a way that it does nothing whatsoever. And so like we should always try to do what's right. And like, but like really like I've been taught that decisions aren't about like good and bad. They're about like what works and what does not work. Like, this decision worked out and the result worked out. So like, some like very weird decision that's neither good nor bad could be the best possible decision. Like, because sometimes it's just about like, then I found $5 and everything kind of worked out. And so, like, I think that life is what you make of it. And, like, we all should try to make the best of the situation that we're in and try to make the best possible decisions. And when we make bad decisions, we should try to learn from them. I'm still going through Ali, and the second one here, this saying I came across is, the best words are those which are confirmed by actions. So like, if you're going to be telling your kids something all the time, like, oh, it's good to have integrity, it's good to like have integrity, then don't be the person who like randomly steals, like in a situation. Like, you should back up what you say. And I think that people look at each other and they see if they back up what they say. And if you're the type of person that does back up what you say, people tend to like you more. Here it says, courteous behavior is the outer form of the intellect. Like, here he says, like, being like polite and aware of others is like how you show that you're a smart person. Like, the reason that jail is so bad is because people are so dumb there. And like, people are not courteous because they're so dumb. And so like, you have to learn how to be courteous and how to accept other people's extreme rudeness, and to like kind of like get walked over. Like when you're in jail a lot, like I've spent a lot of time in jail now. And so like, I've really gotten good at going to jail. But like, I really do believe that like a courteous person, like that's like the base like behavior of a smart person is someone that's courteous and polite. So in my opinion is that like, a courteous person is concerned about like the dependence of the earth. So it says, all in creation are Allah's dependents, and the most beloved of people with Allah is the one who is most concerned with his dependence, like with the earth. And like, what have I talked about a lot? Like, trying to figure out how to deal with the earth's population trends, and like trying to figure out how to build cities sustainably, and trying to figure out like how to take care of our society in the most efficient way possible, where like people don't have to die. Like, I think the mafia like looked at graphs like this, and they said we have to kill people, we have to figure out how to do biological weapons. And my opinion is that like, I look at graphs like this and I think like, we just can't live the way we're living right now. We have to find a new way to live. And that's because I'm such a courteous person that like, I think that like, we have to like force people to be courteous, or else we're all going to end up being dead. And being courteous is like trying to figure out like how to like not say, well, us 2,000 people are in charge of like the entire Grand Canyon. Like, because like the reality is like there are billions of people on the planet. And like, it's being courteous is saying like, you guys can be around. Like, is like, being courteous is not like killing people and just taking their stuff. It's like making a deal with them. And so like, I don't know. So the point I'm trying to make is this.